The elders of Mavuno village often said that every mystery begins as a whisper. And in Mavuno, the whisper came on a windless night. It began with a glow. At first, it was small, barely noticeable, flickering behind the ancient baobab tree that stood at the center of the village. The tree had lived longer than any elder could remember, its thick trunk holding stories of generations long gone. Children were warned never to play too close to it after sunset, for it was said the spirits rested in its hollow heart. That night, however, the tree did not sleep. A young boy named Kito was the first to see it. He had snuck out of his hut, chasing a firefly that shimmered like a falling star. But when he reached the baobab, he froze. There, at its base, burned a flame. It danced like any ordinary fire, orange and gold, alive and restless, but something was wrong. The dry grass around it did not catch. The bark of the tree did not blacken. The flame burned, but nothing burned with it. Kito, trembling with curiosity, stretched out his hand. The fire touched his fingers. He gasped, but not in pain. It was warm, like sunlight resting on his skin, but it did not scorch. It did not bite. It simply existed. The boy ran back to the village, shouting. By morning, the entire village had gathered around the baobab tree. Men, women, elders, and children stood in a circle, murmuring, pointing, questioning. The flame was still there, flickering calmly, untouched by wind or time. Old Mzee Juma, the eldest of them all, stepped forward slowly, leaning on his carved walking stick. "This," he said in a low voice, "is not ordinary." The villagers nodded. Some stepped back in fear. But others stepped closer. Among them was a young woman named Osha. Osha was known in the village for her quiet strength and restless curiosity. Where others saw danger, she saw questions waiting for answers. She studied the fire carefully, her eyes reflecting its golden light. "It does not burn," she said softly. "Everything burns," replied one of the men. "Fire consumes. That is its nature." "Then this is not like other fire," Osha answered. A murmur rippled through the crowd. From that day forward, the flame became the center of Mavuno's life. At first, people approached it with caution. They would stretch out sticks, leaves, even cloth, testing it. Nothing burned. Not even the driest straw. Soon, fear turned into fascination. Children played near it, laughing as they passed their hands through the glowing light. Women gathered around it in the evenings, telling stories. The men began to use it as a meeting place, believing it brought clarity to their discussions. "It is a blessing," said one elder. "A gift from the ancestors," said another. And so, the fire was named Moto wa Baraka, the blessed flame. But not everyone felt at peace. Osha could not ignore the unease growing inside her. She watched the fire day after day, noticing things others did not. The flame never dimmed. It never grew. It remained exactly the same, unchanging, unwavering. And sometimes, late at night, when the village had fallen silent, she would swear she saw shadows moving within it. Not flickers. Shapes. Watching. Waiting. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Osha sat beside Mzee Juma. "Grandfather," she said, "have you ever seen anything like this before?" The old man shook his head slowly. "No," he admitted. "But I have heard stories." "What kind of stories?" He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Stories of gifts that are not gifts. Of things that appear to bless, but come with a cost." Osha felt a chill. "What cost?" Mzee Juma looked at the fire, his eyes clouded with memory. "That is what no one knows, until it is too late." Days turned into weeks. The villagers grew comfortable, too comfortable. They began to rely on the flame. People brought their problems to it, believing it held answers. Some even started leaving offerings, food, beads, small carvings, placing them at its base. And then, something changed. It started with Musa. Musa was a farmer, strong and hard-working, known for his generosity. One morning, he woke up different. He refused to share his harvest. When neighbors came to ask for help, he turned them away. "This is mine," he said coldly. "I worked for it." The village was shocked. Musa had never behaved this way before. Soon after, others began to change. A woman who once cared for orphan children started demanding payment for every meal she gave. A group of friends began fighting over land that had always been shared. Greed, quiet at first, began to spread like a sickness. Osha noticed the pattern. Every person who had spent long hours sitting by the fire changed. She confronted Musa one evening. "You are not yourself," she said. "I am finally myself," he replied, his voice sharp. "Why should I give what is mine to others?" "Because that is who we are," Osha insisted. "That is who we have always been." Musa laughed bitterly. "Maybe we have been fools." That night, Osha returned to the baobab tree. The fire flickered as always, but now, she saw it clearly. The shadows inside it were moving. Twisting. Growing. She stepped closer. "What are you?" she whispered. The flame responded. Not with words, but with a feeling. A pull. A whisper in her mind. "Take what you deserve." Osha stumbled back, her heart pounding. This was no blessing. It was feeding on them. The next morning, she gathered the villagers. "This fire is not what we think it is," she declared. Some listened. Many did not. "It has brought us together," one man argued. "It has given us light," said another. "And what has it taken?" Osha challenged. Silence. Then Musa stepped forward. "You are afraid," he said. "Afraid of change. This fire shows us the truth, that we must look after ourselves first." Murmurs of agreement spread. Osha looked around and realized something terrifying. The village was no longer united. The fire had divided them. That night, Osha made a decision. If the fire had been brought, it could be removed. She returned to the baobab tree alone. The air felt heavier, thicker, as if the night itself was watching. She picked up a clay pot filled with water and poured it over the flame. Nothing happened. The fire burned as before. She tried covering it with sand. Still, it remained. Frustration turned to determination. "If you will not leave," she said, "then I will uncover your truth." She stepped into the flame. It did not burn her. But this time, it did something else. Visions flooded her mind. She saw villages before hers. People gathered around the same fire. Laughing. Trusting. Then changing. Fighting. Destroying each other. And in every vision, the fire remained, untouched, waiting for the next village. Osha fell to her knees, gasping. "It feeds on us," she whispered. "On our greed, our selfishness." The realization struck her like lightning. The fire did not burn wood. It burned hearts. She stood slowly, her fear replaced by clarity. The only way to stop it was not to destroy it, but to refuse it. The next day, she spoke again. This time, her voice did not tremble. "This fire has no power of its own," she said. "It lives because we feed it, with our greed, our pride, our selfishness. If we change, it will fade." Some scoffed. But others, those who still remembered who they were, listened. One by one, small acts began. A woman shared her food without asking for payment. A man returned land he had taken. A child gave away his only toy to a friend. At first, the fire remained the same. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, it flickered differently. It weakened. Days passed. The acts of kindness grew stronger. The village began to heal. And the fire began to shrink. Musa, watching this change, felt something stir within him. Guilt. Shame. One evening, he approached Osha. I was wrong, he admitted quietly. The next morning, he shared his harvest with the village. That was the moment the fire trembled. Its glow dimmed. The shadows inside it twisted violently, then began to disappear. By nightfall, the flame that had once burned endlessly, flickered one last time. And vanished. The baobab tree stood silent once more. The villagers gathered around it, not in fear, but in reflection. Mzee Juma smiled gently. It was never the fire, he said. It was us. Osha looked at the empty ground where the flame had been. No, she replied softly. It was both. From that day on, the story of the fire was told to every generation. Not as a tale of magic, but as a warning. That not all that glows is a blessing. And that the most dangerous fire is the one that burns within.